Good morning! So it's Carrie with Quilter's Hideaway. Yesterday we posted that today is National Jelly Roll Day. So it's a real holiday. A jelly roll is a 2.5-inch strip of Moda fabric. And we thought we would give you a taste of our sew-alongs. So our sew-alongs are normally a private Facebook group where we work on a project for 4, 6, or 8 weeks. All together. Basically, you just have to purchase the pattern or the ruler that we're using. You get added to the group, and then each week we slowly work on a project together, or we have different tasks that we need to accomplish in that week. I give you homework, you work on it, and we meet the next Saturday. But today, we're just gonna have a one-day project using a jelly roll and a 1/2 yard of fabric. And actually, it doesn't use a full jelly roll. It uses 18 2.5-inch strips, and it makes this project hanging behind me. So it's a great baby quilt, throw quilt, even a picnic quilt. I love to lay it on the ground and I sit on it or lay on it or whatever I'm doing. You can always make it a little larger, but it's just a fun throw it together. You can embellish it by appliquing or embroidering the kiddo's name or a fun date or saying on either side. You can applique on dinosaurs or flowers or whatever it needs if you want to dress it up a little bit, or leave it simple as I have on the quilt behind me. Just keep it simple and have fun with it. So we're going to do some tips and tricks on sewing this quilt together, and we're going to try to get it sewn together in 30-45 minutes. We'll see how quick I sew today. All right, so I have a jelly roll right here. I'm just going to open it up all the way. This is actually a Free Spirit 2.5-inch strip set. So I'm going to open it up. Because it's a full jelly roll, I'm going to pick out my faves, which I always tell people don't do this because you still have to use all the strips. But I have another project in mind, so I'm just going to pick out a handful. Like I said, I need 18, so I might just, I have a frog in my throat. I might just open it halfway, count 18, and then use those strips. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Well, that doesn't get me through the blues. Take 2 off, put 2 on, turn around in a circle up and down. That is what I'm going to use. And we're just going to, you know how I roll, throw those out of the way. All right, I'm dropping things. All right, make sure I've got 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Perfect. Okay, so I've got 18 strips. You can obviously make it longer or shorter if you like. I really like the size, so I'm going to go ahead and go with it. Now, all I need to do is sew these length of fabric. But first, I'm going to kind of lay them out. I'm going to leave them folded so we can work on this table. Lay them out however I want them to appear in the quilt. So it looks like maybe I've got 2 of each. We'll see as we kind of lay out and get a pattern going. Happy Saturday morning, doing all the things. Hopefully you guys had a good night. Occasionally I have fun treats while I work. If you've ever done our sew-alongs, you've seen those. I've got lots of purple in here. All right, so all I'm doing is I'm just kind of laying them out, mixing them up a little bit, trying to keep it sort of kind of loosey-goosey, no pattern. I don't always do great with the no pattern thing. Separate out the duplicates. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a quilt. It's supposed to be a fun quilt, a fun project to work on today. If we sneak that guy right in there. Ooh, I've got some greens. This will be a good spot here. And maybe right there. That'll work. Okay, so here's my layout. What I've done is I've tried to separate out all of my purples so they're not touching, and my blues. So everything just kind of looks really scrappy. You can dig in your stash and find 2.5-inch strips left. This is a great project. If you have a lot of binding pieces left over, just start sewing them together. It's a really fun, easy project to get done. So 2.5 is normally your average strip size for binding. You could do this with smaller strips or larger strips as well, or kind of variation. I've done one where I used 1.5-inch strips up to 3-inch strips and just mixed them all together. So lots of options. All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start sewing, but I don't want to just start sewing and add on a piece all the way through, because I don't want to get to the end and have 17 pieces sewn and add on one piece. That's a lot of weight to be pulling on my machine as I add on one piece. So I'm gonna sew them in pairs. So I'm gonna do 2s together and then also 4s together, so on and so forth. I'm trying not to put a lot of thought into the layout of them. I want it to be really scrappy, which is sometimes hard for me. So I've got my 2 first strips. I'm going to line them up. Now remember, if you just grabbed out of your stash, you might have lots of different manufacturers or designers in your strips, so they might not all be Free Spirit or they might not all be Moda. That's okay. You're just gonna try to find the middle and center them up. So some of your strips might hang over a bunch, so you might have a long strip and a short strip. It's all right. Just try to center them up the best you can, and at the end, we'll square it up and make it happy. Let's start sewing. All right, I'm gonna speed sew today. It's not my normal thing, but we're gonna try to get this done all together because it is National Jelly Roll. All right, I have checked my 1/4 inch with my seam allowance ruler. If you haven't already, there is a YouTube video out there that we put out on the Quilter's Hideaway channel on our favorite ways to check our 1/4 inch. And I have my handy dandy painter's tape bumper ready to go. So hopefully, as I sew fast, it's not too crazy. All right, you do not have to backstitch on this, and you don't have to pin as long as you keep both sides pretty straight. Here we go. Anybody have fun questions? I could answer questions today. Let's see, I see Linda, I see Joan. My machine's even wiggling. Good morning, good morning. What have we had for breakfast? We'll start there with this question. Otherwise, you guys just have to stare at me sewing. You'll learn I'm not a very good sewist? What's the word? I don't know. I'm normally really slow. Hello, good morning. Hello, Jane. Hello, Angela. Yes, the Jelly Roll Race Quilt is a great first quilt. This is similar. A Jelly Roll Race typically uses the whole Jelly Roll. Remember, we're only going to use 18 strips. Jelly Roll Race makes a throw quilt. This is just going to make a fun, small kiddo quilt or picnic quilt. Good morning, Judy. Good morning, Lisa. Hello, hello. Hey, Susan. Happy Jelly Roll Day. We have cinnamon rolls downstairs, too. I'm ready for my cinnamon roll. Judy, you bet. Yes, I always have leftover strips, and I normally just throw them in a bucket. So let them build up, and then grab a bunch of them and start making a quilt. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Ann. Good morning, Karen. Miss Lisa had oatmeal. Adeline had some oatmeal, too. Good morning, Franny. She should recognize this machine. I'm all about my hand-me-downs. Miss Lynn, good morning. Hello, Debbie. Lynn had a cinnamon roll, too. The best. Good morning, Molly. Sharon had blueberry muffins. Those sound really good, too. All right, so there's my first 2. I'm going to grab my next 2 strips. Stay here. We'll see how big of a mess I can make. All right, I'm just going to grab my next 2 strips and sew them together. Remember, I want to sew pairs together here. And if I can, as I sew these pairs, I'm going to try to sew from the right to the left side of my quilt. And then when I sew the pairs together to create units of 4, I'm going to sew from the right to left, left to right, the opposite side. What else do we have? Cookies. Franny had cookies. Probably some hugs, too. Angie had eggs, kiwi, and bacon. Yum. I know whose house I need to go to next Saturday. Linda's drinking her coffee. Good morning, Eileen. Judy's having coffee too. I cannot drink coffee, guys. I try really hard to like it. And normally if my husband has a cup of coffee around me, I will take a sip of his, but I do not like coffee. I feel like it's that thing, like girls always go and have coffee together, and I want to like it. I just can't. I'm all about my ice cream though. I'll get ice cream with anybody. I'll bonk the phone. Good morning, Miss Karen. Good morning, Mickey. Joan, the prior quilt show. I had a handful of ladies go to that yesterday, and they loved it. So, report back. I'm excited to see some shows coming back in. We decided to sit out shows for this year because of Adeline. It just makes it hard. Kind of a little short short-handed at the shop, short-handed at the show. Wouldn't be a good mix. Ooh, Fair and Claremore too, yes. Hey, Miss Karen. Good morning, good morning. It is a gorgeous day. When I left the house this morning, the fog was coming up over the fields. It looked, or the fields were foggy. What is that called? I don't know. Something like that. It looked cool. Be a good morning to go for a run. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Linda. Hey, Jane. I didn't stop drinking coffee until I was... Joan, that gives me hope. Just maybe I'll get there. I just don't know, though. I'm not a coffee girl. Good morning, Jolly. Hello, hello, hello. All right, so remember, I'm sewing pairs together right now. I'm grabbing my next set. Sewing pairs together, and then I'll start sewing these into fours. Just a reminder on these pairs, if you have a directional fabric, keep in mind, if you have a directional fabric, to keep it going the right way. Right now, nothing's really directional. Some could be considered directional. I'm just grabbing and sewing. Not too stressed about it. Let's see here. I've been drinking coffee. Lynn, goodness gracious. I couldn't do it. I'm a little wired already, so I feel like coffee is just not always a good mix. Good morning, Debbie. Hello, Teresa. I can do some tea. That is where I kind of sneak in. I can do some tea. Good morning, good morning. All right, so we went over breakfast. Who is sewing today? Is anybody sewing? We have a t-shirt class downstairs that starts later in the morning. So we're going to be sewing t-shirts most of the day. Hey, Jo Beth. Carol will get ice cream with me. I'm in. Doesn't take much to convince me of that. We'll have to get ice cream next time. Hey, Lynn. I see lots of Lynn's on this morning. All right, just keep sewing. Just keep sewing. You guys, this is not my normal speed. I'm making a crazy quilt. Jo Beth, that's so fun. I love those quilts. You'll have to post a picture for sure. All right, just keep sewing. Oh. Okay, Lynn is putting her cinnamon buns together. Jane is too. So Phyllis is sewing today, yay! So our last sew along was the cinnamon bun sew along with Jaybird Quilts. We finished it up last Saturday, and we're about to start another sew along. So this is kind of what we do. Typically, you have like a set assignment each week. So today we're obviously going to try to do the whole quilt top, but normally we would have a week where we're picking out fabric and starting to cut, and then a week where we're starting to piece. And then if it needs trimmed or rearranged or anything like that, that's another week. So we just break it up into small increments each week. We had about 55 or so people do the cinnamon bun quilt, and it's so fun to watch the community where we're all working on the same project and everybody's kind of pitching in and giving advice on layout or tips on fabric. So it's a really neat way to do a quilt together. You can work on it at home in your PJs. You can come in, whatever works. Working on tops for a group to tie. Oh, Joan, that's awesome. You're going to be a busy lady today. Miss Karen, hello. All right, so we've got t-shirt later today. October, we start our shop hop. So we posted a picture of our shop hop quilt. I saw it get posted in the Happy Trail shop hop page, and then we'll try to get a picture posted today. We've got a quilt finishing project and a tree skirt option for that, so that shop hop. It's October 1st through October 16th. Molly. Ooh, Molly, that's going to be cute. Curiouser and Curiouser. That's going to be cute. Hey, guys. Hey. Come on, little friend. Just keep sewing. Hey, Linda. One day I'm going to do a tip jar and we're going to get some air conditioning up here. No, I'm just kidding. One day we will put air conditioning up here, though. It gets just a little toasty. Good morning, Miss Jolly. How fast can I sew? Does your machine have a speed like a speed setting on it, or do you just control it with your foot? So the classroom machines downstairs, I can slow them down or speed them up. This machine, it's all about your foot. That's always a fun question. Sometimes I surprise people. Or if I borrow a machine where someone normally sews slow, I always amp it up, and then I get caught because I forget to set it back down. Good morning, Miss Laura. So we're sewing a jelly roll quilt today. It takes 18 2.5-inch strips and half a yard of fabric. Happy National Jelly Roll Day. Good old featherweight. Yes, Rosa. Foot speed is the way to go. And those featherweights are a workhorse. That's what I sew on at the house. Just keep sewing. It's on high. Joan is like, nope, I just set it on high. Oh, Angela, yes, featherweights. And you'll notice I'm not even worrying about trimming it off my machine. I just leave it on the machine, grab my next set of strips, and keep going. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Oh, goodness, guys. Maddie likes to put it on high speed and just giggles. Oh, no. That's fun. Yeah, little kids always like to go fast. I always went fast. When I'm working on like a real project, I am not a fast sewer. I'm really slow. But these are just strips. I feel like I should get it together. Linda has both kinds of machines. That works. That works. Hey, Deanne. Hey, Miss Lisa. Making sure I haven't missed anybody. Oh, who is ready for fall, or do you like summer? I'm ready for some pumpkins. Mostly just pumpkin flavored things, but pumpkins work too. I think it's supposed to start getting cooler around here, and I cannot wait. Also, maybe double check that you have bobbin every so often. Just as a fun FYI, don't run out of bobbin. Summer rules. Miss Joan, I'm ready for cooler weather. Laura, I am with you. Fall and sweatshirts, yes, please. Winter. Jane, you know how I feel about that. Bring it on. Carol likes fall. Halloween glow quilt. Oh, that's gonna be cute. Lynn, I think I agree. I can do a little bit of the heat, but I can't last for long in the heat. Just keep sewing. Ready for fall? Yep. I'll have to, this year I'm going to have to go to a pumpkin patch. I haven't been to one in forever, but we're going to have to get a pumpkin for Adeline. Joan, 65 years of snow, and that is enough for me. Joan, I respect that. My brother now lives in Alaska, so I'm excited to see what he thinks of winter this year. Normally he can deal with it normally, but this year we'll see. He might not like it. Just keep, Linda, yes. It's too hot to do anything outside right now. All right, 2 more seams, and then I'll have all my pairs done. Put these together. Here we go. Do-do-do-do. Just keep sewing, just keep sewing. Right, Linda? We'll have to see if he likes it. He is in an itty-bitty town up in Alaska, so we'll see how this winter goes for him. He might not be loving it. Hi, Mickey. I've got something caught. It is not happy. There it is. Okay, so some people are working on cinnamon bun. I saw some people finishing Halloween quilts. What else are we doing? What else are we working on? I cannot sing. You guys do not want me to try to sing. This fabric is just being funny on me. All right, one more long seam after this. So we're about to head to the iron. As soon as I get this guy to get under there. Tell him snow dyers are out. Well, the funny thing, Linda, is he went up there and he didn't have a car. He's in a town that has about a population of about 300. And so he bought a truck for $500 and he sent me the picture of the truck. And let's just say I'm glad that he doesn't have to drive far every day. He actually, I think from what I've been told, is he's flying out most of the days for work. So he'll fly out in the morning and then get home in the evening by plane. So he doesn't have to drive very often. But the truck that he bought, all I have to say is yikes. So we'll see how winter snow tires would be. I don't even know that its tires are halfway decent. Building a deck. Hey, Angela, helping is the way to go. Take out some water. Tell them they're doing a good job. I think it's still supposed to be a little warm today. We'll see. Making a brown goose quilt with wonky geese borders. Lisa, I love flying geese. I have not tackled the wonky geese yet, but I've seen some pretty awesome quilts with them. A sled and some dogs. Lynn, I think that's probably what he's thinking. Angela, my brother lives in Alaska now, so he's working up that way. Hello, Linda. Studded tires in the anchorage. That could work. That could work. Just keep sewing. We're almost there, guys, so we're going to head to the iron. I should have checked my bobbin before I started this project. Whoops. After cinnamon bun, I'm going to work on my log cabin. Yes, we had a log cabin class not that long ago, Miss Jane. Well, actually, I think you were in it. Let's be honest. Michael needs a snowmobile. He needs a something. Okay, this is my quilt at the moment. So I need to cut all my strips apart and iron them. So let's head to the iron. Oh man, I have a tail. Yikes. Okay, set this here. All right, so I'm just gonna press them all to one way. So I'm gonna kind of pay attention how I cut them off my pile or my chain stitched tail because I just sewed them from this direction down. This was the end that I just finished. Actually, that's where I started because it has long tails. So then the next time I start sewing, I want to sew from this side down. So I'm going to press them. Let's see, if I started sewing from left to right, I'm going to press them down, so towards the bottom of my quilt. So you can set your seam. I should set up, we don't normally do these long presses up here. I need to set up an ironing table. All right, so I just kind of set my seam and then I push it out and then I can actually press it. So up and down with the iron. I don't want to like move or stretch my fabric too much. So step one, I set my seam. So I gently just press it down. Then I open that fabric up, open those tails up, and using my iron, it's being wonky, I just gently push it back, and then I come back through and I really press that seam crisp. So I add some push to that press. Set the seam, push it back, and press it down once you get it opened. There we go. One more spot. Okay, so that one is ready to go. I'm just gonna lay it over the chair for now and grab the next piece. Here we go. The little decorations. Set my seam. And if you want, you could just go ahead and set that whole seam all the way down. If you have a real ironing board, it works really well. Here I just have a wool mat. And then I'm going to open it up and press that seam back. And then I just add some pressure to that iron and really get it crisp. So see how my seams don't line up here or my edges don't line up here, and we're okay with that. So we will trim that or make that happy at the end. So open it up. Make sure that when you push that iron back that you're really getting that seam open. We don't want any kind of puckering or anything to happen right in there. So that's why I like to push it back. Really open her up. Almost there. All right, and that one's done. We'll lay it over here. Grab the next piece, cut it off, set the seam. So if I were sewing this at home where I had a minute, I would probably use some Best Press or some light starch. I just like everything to get really crisp and nice and pressed. But this is National Jelly Roll Day. Our goal is to get a quilt top finished. So we're gonna keep it simple. I love this like periwinkle blue color. And on top of that, I really want my cinnamon roll, y'all. So, all right. That one is done. Just adding it to my pile. Grab my next strip. Oh, for a second I thought I had run out of bobbin. All right. Set your seam, step 1, and then we press it back. Okay, so let's see here. How many more do we have? A handful. Have to find the tails now. So I think I'm going to do this one last. This is going to be my last one, and we'll just kind of start to build half of the quilt, and I'll finish the quilt up later off the camera so you guys aren't stuck watching me do the whole thing. All right. Here we go. All right, last little bit. Okay, so let's go back to the cutting board or our design wall and lay out what we've got so far. And then I'll work on, so I still have these strips, but they'll just get added on later. There's no need for you guys to watch me do the whole thing. So I'm gonna head to my ironing table so I can show you. We're just gonna lay out these. I could have kept them in order the whole time, but what's the fun in that? All right, so we're laying them out. Because I'm making it scrappy, I didn't have to worry about who goes where the whole time I made my quilt. I'm just gonna kind of put these in spots that I think they'll work and then start sewing them together. Okay, so here's kind of where I'm at again. Now I'm gonna take the 2s. So I had sets of 2. I'm going to put them together and sew them into sets of 4. But same thing, I'm just going to sew all the way down. Remember, if your strips really aren't the same size, you can always find the middle and line the middle up first. That's totally up to you. All right, so I'm going to start sewing as you guys slowly move around this way. Remember, no need to backstitch at the beginning because we're going to trim all of those edges off anyways. All right, so I'm sewing these pairs together. This is going to give me 8 strips sewn together, and I'm trying to sew the opposite direction from how I sewed earlier. So earlier I started sewing down here, and I sewed that way. So this seam I started at the other side, and I'm sewing down. That keeps the fabric from shifting too bad. So if you sewed the whole quilt from right to left with these long strips, there's a chance that you could pull the fabric just slightly, and you could get a quilt that bows or cups. So if you alternate those seams, just like you would with like woodwork or anything like that, it helps it a lot. Okay, so there's those 2 strips sewn together. I'm going to sew these strips together. So you can see both of my strip sets, so this side and this side, they don't line up. So see how this strip was longer than that one, and this one is longer than that one. I'm just going to try to find the middle. So I split the difference. So I kind of lined up my 2 short strips. What I want to try to avoid is shifting it down even farther and making this short strip way lower than the back short strip, okay? Because that means I would have to cut off even more of my quilt. So I'm going to instead just line up my 2 short pieces and then keep sewing. So we just have 2 seams to sew here. So we're going to sew this seam. That'll give us 2 sets of 4. And I would go all the way down the quilt sewing the 2 sets of 4 until the whole quilt was sewn into 4 strips. 4 strip sets. And then I would sew the 4s into 8s. And so you would basically have an 8 and a 12. You would sew those last 3 together. Just keep sewing, just keep sewing. We're almost there, guys. Do-do-do-do-do. Hey, Cheryl. Hey, Grace. Hey, guys. Welcome in. Happy National Jelly Roll Day. We're just piecing together a quick jelly roll project. It's 18 2.5-inch strips and then a ½ yard of fabric. And we will do the ½ yard of fabric in just a second. All right, so here I've got, this is 1 strip set, and here's the other. So I've got 2 sets of 4. There's 1 set of 4, and here's my other set of 4. So I could go ahead and sew this seam together, but remember I had 1 more. So I'm actually going to attach him to one of these 4s first, and then sew the whole group together. Because I don't want to have a huge group of strips and then try to sew on 1 or 2 strips onto the end, because that big group would pull off my table. So I'm going to set that 1 strip set aside, grab this one, and sew him on to an end. Trying to pay attention to what direction I'm sewing. Playing Russian roulette with my bobbin, guys. I forgot to put a new bobbin in at the beginning. Sonia, this is a Bernina, but I sew on a ton of different machines. I have a handful of hand-me-downs. I have a handful that I bought. It just kind of depends on what I'm working on. This machine actually right now has been set up. We have an upstairs area where we do a lot of our videos for YouTube and such. So we try to keep it all set up. So that's why this machine's up here. But I typically trade them out, have fun with it. The biggie to remember is just that you want to check your 1/4 inch every time you sit down to sew. And make sure that you're sewing on this with the same 1/4 inch no matter what machine you're at. Hey Delane, hey Doreen, hey Cheryl. Hello, hello everybody. This fabric likes to fray. I've noticed with pre-cuts, sometimes they fray a lot. Just make sure you're getting that good 1/4 inch and you'll be okay. The other thing is try not to mess with it a lot. So if you're trying to make a quilt to show off, make sure you get it quilted before you show it a bunch. Otherwise, those seams aren't protected until it's quilted, and you'll slowly start to fray away your seam. And that is something you don't want. All right, so now I have a set of 6 and I have a set of 4. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew the seam to attach these two. So I'm just going to grab it up. If you've noticed, I haven't been pressing. You can choose to press at the end because none of these seams interlock, so they don't, nothing's perpendicular to what I'm sewing. I'm just sewing 2 full strips together. If I had a seam that came across this way and did need to be pressed before I start sewing, obviously press that first. But because these are just 2 pieces of fabric I'm sewing together and nothing intercepts or is perpendicular to the seam I'm sewing right now, we're okay. Alrighty, this is the last seam, and then we're gonna grab that 1/2 yard of fabric and go to town. Hi Lorinda, hey Liz. Welcome in. So this is a lot like what our sew-alongs are like, with the exception of I don't typically sew this long on our sew-alongs. I'll sew a couple pieces so you know how to do it, but you don't have to sit and watch me sew for a long time. I try really hard to just have some pieces together. So it's more about the tips and the tricks instead of the watching Carrie maybe not sew a straight line, because that happens. Miss Laura, aren't those fun? It hides all of this stuff back in there. Almost to the end of this, and then we're going to head back to the cutting table. All right, let's head to the cutting table. Here we go. Okay, so I can press all of these seams either way. Again, I'm not going to worry about that. I just showed you how I press them. But what we have here is we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of our strips. So 10 out of 18. So I need to do the other half still, so I can finish out those 18. But we're going to move forward and pretend that this is all of our quilts, or all of the inside strip sets. All right? So this is kind of what it's looking like, and then obviously I would have the other half. So I would go ahead and press it, and then once I press it, I'm going to sew on my outer edges. Now I really like to just grab a 1/2 yard of fabric. So for this quilt, this is the 1/2 yard I grabbed, and I'm going to cut it into 2 strips. If you notice, I have scalloped the edge on the quilt behind me. You can scallop it, you can leave it full, you can do points instead of scalloped if you want, kind of like a ribbon end. You can, as we talked earlier, add a name, add embellishes, whatever you want to do. But let's cut the 2 9-inch strips out of this fabric, sew it on, and then I'm going to show you how to trim everything up so it's ready to quilt. All right, so move my quilt top out of the way and grab a couple rulers. First up, with my 1/2 yard of fabric, I need to get a straight line that I can, or a straight side that I can cut a strip off of. So when you have fabric cut at a fabric store, it's not always perfectly straight, or if you folded it up, taken it to your sewing room, maybe refolded it 6 times or washed it, you no longer have a straight edge to cut off of. So what I like to do is, with the fold facing down or facing towards me, you'll notice I don't use any of the numbers on my cutting mat. I only use my ruler and my fabric to make all of my cuts. So I ignore my cutting mat, but I'm going to grab, or I'm going to find a completely solid line on my ruler and line that up exactly on my fold. So I make sure that this 1-inch line all the way across is perfectly lined up on my fold. All right. So there's a glare somewhere. Here it is. Okay. So it's lined up all the way, and then I make sure that there's a little bit of fabric sticking out all the way up, and I have to check all the way up and both layers. Once I have, it's ready to cut. Now this table I really like because I can walk all the way around and make sure that I can cut from both ways and I don't have to spin my fabric. Otherwise, if you have a mat that you can turn around, because I'm gonna cut and square up that fabric, then I don't wanna shift my fabric around until after I've made my second cut. So I'm gonna squeeze to this side. So now you're watching over my head, and I'm just gonna make my cut. I also just cut the length of my hand that I'm holding on the ruler, and then I reposition my hand and finish. So then I know I've held the ruler tight, so I have a straight line and it didn't wibble wobble on me. Okay, once I cut that, I'm good. Now, I want a 9 or 9.5 inch strip of fabric, whatever your half yard allows. Half a yard of fabric is 18 inches. This does not have to be perfect, but I'm gonna add an inch. So it's actually gonna be a 9.5 inch strip because I have a little over half a yard here. So again, I'm gonna line up a straight edge all the way across at the bottom of my ruler, and then I've had to pair or buddy up a second ruler. This greeny colored ruler is 8.5 inches. I want 9.5, so I'm gonna use an inch from this other ruler. So I line up all the way up the 1 inch line, making sure it's straight and perfect, and then I do the same thing with that solid line all the way along my fold. I can slide this one down. So all the way along my fold, I have that straight line. Now it's ready to cut. So when I do the buddy system, I'm just going to put my hand on that ruler and hold it. I can move this second ruler out of my way. So that's one way where you don't have to have 1,000 rulers. You can buddy them up and make it work. You just have to be a little slower and hold it a little straighter. Now I just need one more cut, so I probably don't have to re-square up my fabric. And I'll know that by putting, again, the solid line on the fold of my fabric and then making sure I can line all the way up. And on this one, it's actually funky, so I do need to re-square it up. But since I only need one for this side, I'm gonna leave it alone. What I would do is I would line my black line or my solid line up again, re-square up my fabric by going to the other side of the table, and then measure out 9.5 inches a second time. But we'll put that over there. I at least have one strip, which is all I need for the fabric section that I'm using. So I'm going to grab my fabric piece and lay it over. So I need to sew this 9.5 inch strip onto my fabric set, just like we've been doing. Just like so. Last seam. Dun, da, da, da. Line everything up. So after this seam, we're going to trim it all even, and then we're going to get to going. Here we go. Last seam. Just keep sewing. So when you're sewing, especially these edges or borders or anything like that, where you have a bulk of fabric on one side and something small on the other, make sure you're adjusting, or if you're sewing binding, make sure you're adjusting this bulk every so often, or really trying to hold it all together so it feeds through the machine well or evenly, and it's not like stuck on the ground pulling everything down really far. So you'll see back in the back, it starts to pull away from my foot or my machine. It's kind of pulling off to the right. So back in here, it's pulling off to the right. So I'm going to stop and readjust, and then I can start sewing again. And every time it starts pulling off, I'm going to stop and readjust it. So then that seam is straighter and doesn't have as much pull on it. You'll see I kind of push that hand up and back as I sew. Off to Neverland. It also doesn't help if you're like standing on it or have a chair on it. That happened to me last night. So just pay attention to where all your fabric is so there's no pull on it. Does it matter which piece is on top if not using a walking foot? As long as you're guiding it all, not necessarily. Some machines, it does matter a little bit more. Just remember that those feed dogs on the bottom are what are grabbing and pulling your fabric through. So if you have a piece of fabric that's like super slippery or really giving you grief, put it on the bottom and it'll pull it through. Sonia, this is a Cape jelly roll. So I think we still have a couple downstairs, but it's a Cape jelly roll, and then I just added a half a yard of fabric. So this is half of my quilt. So if I lay it up here, or it's a little over half to be honest, but a little over half of my quilt, I have a square edge down here where my finished quilt behind me has a scalloped edge. But I still have all of these salvages, and they're all kind of wonky. So I've got a long one and a short one and a funky one and a who knows what one. I would press all my seams first, and I would obviously have the whole quilt finished. But what you're going to do is you're going to line up the edges. So you would line up your two border pieces and hold your quilt in half. And then I can use either ruler really. So with my quilt folded in half, I'm going to then make sure that nothing's pulling on it, and I've lined it up all the way down the best I can. Okay, so up next, I'm going to take my ruler, and just like I did when I cut the half yard, I'm gonna find a solid line and line it up on the fold of my quilt as far down as my ruler allows. Okay, so I'm at the 20-inch line. It doesn't matter what line I'm at, but a solid line all the way down on the fold. Then I like to come in here and try to find some of my seams and see if my ruler mark is matching up with some of those seams. And it's not too shabby. If I would have pressed it first, it would probably be perfect. But I'm gonna play with smoothing out my fabric, making sure all of those seams are open. Again, press it first so it lines up a little better. Once I have all of those done, then I can peek in here and see how I'm doing with those salvages. Am I gonna get them all cut off? I'm pretty close here, but I think it'll be okay. And the top one, of course, I'm okay on. So again, check. It's a lot of back and forth. Check those solid lines and those seam lines. Check that you're cutting off enough fabric. Once you feel confident that you are, then you can cut it off and have a straight edge all the way across. Now, you would do that for both sides. This is when you would quilt your quilt. You could do straight line quilting all the way down the middles or on either side of your seams. So you could do like a 1/4 inch on either side of your seams. I'm not a huge stitch in the ditch fan unless you promise to press those seams to one side and not open. If you have your seams open and you stitch in the ditch, all you're doing is sewing down that seam, so you're kind of degrading the integrity of the seam. But if you press it to one side, it's not bad. So if you quilt it, then you could scallop the edge. Now this point, before it's quilted, is when you would want to embellish it. Whether you're going to applique on it, embroider on it, whatever you want to do. If you want to add like some flowers drifting up in some of these strips, that'd be cute, or a big dino on one of the strips and then like a little boy's name. Here's when you want to do that. Then you could square it all up and quilt it. Now our video next week that'll go out on our YouTube channel is all about how to get this scallop look, or how to scallop an edge or the whole quilt. And then of course we did the binding series that would walk you through how to bind it. So you could have a totally finished quilt by the end of today to celebrate National Jelly Roll Day if you want. And if you make this quilt, please, please, please give us a picture, send us a picture, leave it in the comments, post it on our wall, what have you. It's a really fun, quick and easy project. I'm over halfway done, all right? I have 8 more strips to add and then the outside border to do. I need to press all my seams, and then this is a finished quilt top in 45 minutes or so. I don't know what time it is, I forgot my watch, but there you have it. So it's Carrie with Quilter's Hideaway. Thanks for joining us for National Jelly Roll Day. Share it if you want, have some fun, and we will see you guys next time. Bye!